All right. Hello once again, everyone. My name is Bob Turner, and this is our next episode of the Summit Podcast. I think this is about episode number 71 now, so we're getting there. My goal this year is maybe hit 100. So we're connected with a great guy today named Jacob Godar. He and I have been kind of crossing paths in the personal development world and entrepreneurship world here for the past couple of years. I've seen him at different events, and I just like his social, and I've seen what he's doing, and most particularly impressed by the fact that he just tackled an Ironman after scraping himself up off the dirt, putting himself back together after a motorcycle accident. So I'm going to let him introduce himself, but here's Jacob Godar on the Summit Podcast. Man, thanks for coming on. I appreciate being here.
Dude, Bob, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, you summed it up. I did definitely scrape myself off the ground at the beginning of last year, but I'm a lawn care landscape business owner. I've been involved in, personal development for a long time. That's, like you said, where we've crossed paths. We have some of our own lawn care and landscape coaching stuff where we try to help other owners win in business. And I'm avid. I've realized over last year, like I've got this big hang up with, I want to be considered an athlete. So whether it was racing dirt bikes or the next version of that. And that's where, triathlon came in, and running really started before I even had my wreck, and I'd finished my first marathon right before I wrecked, then had the wreck, then did an Ironman. And then most recently I completed my first long ultra, which was the most challenging thing I've ever done in my life. And so, yeah, that's kind of where we're at today.
I'll tell you what, your orthopedic surgeon must be pulling his hair out.
He did great. And so it was an emergency room deal, and the first time I've ever worked with this person, but I do remember, like, when they bolted me back together, everybody I met asked who, or was texting me, asked who did it. And when I said the name, like, I have a friend that used to sell medical fixtures and things like that, and I said, this is who did it. And he's like, that's exactly who you wanted to do the job. And that's kind of been the feedback. And it's crazy that the magnitude that I'm realizing of the accident. Like, I knew the accident was really, really bad, but the break itself, I had acetabular break, so I broke the socket of my pelvis, and it rearward, so the head of my femur broke it back through the back end, and they had to put 2 plates and 9 screws in it to hold it together. And he did a fantastic job. What was crazy is painful, all the cutting and all the dislocation, I guess, was probably the most painful part, is what the doctor said, what caused the major part of the pain. But what was crazy is, even when I went to go get the staples out of my leg, I think 7 days after the accident, they're asking me, is there pain? It's like, really, there wasn't much. If you don't move it much, there wasn't crazy pain. I expected it to still be like emanating with pain. So I've been very impressed from, like, when he first did the surgery to, like, it seemed like week on week on week, it just got better and better and better. And there was, like, noticeable gains the whole time.
Well, youth certainly on your side, which was helpful. But I'll tell you, when I saw you rolling out of the hospital, I said, man, this guy, I don't know, this guy heals like nobody else. And then it wasn't long after that you started talking about Ironman, or maybe you had before that. And I'll be honest, I'm like, there's no way this cat's doing an Ironman coming off that kind of an injury, not this year, right? And I certainly was pulling for you, but I'm like, I don't know how you come off something like that and go and put yourself through 140.6 miles self-propelled.
Yeah.
Right? Having missed probably some pretty critical training.
Yeah.
And then you went out there and dropped an 11 something, right?
Yeah. It was a 11:34. It was crazy. And, like, I was really leery about doing it. So when I went to the hospital, the Ironman was already a part of the goal for the year, right? I'm just the way I am, and I get obsessed with things, and I can't help it. But I'm hearing, like, from other people's story, I really had my wife pissed off, because she's like, he's about to die, and all he is talking about with every surgeon is he going to be able to make an Ironman in October. He's like, that's all he cares about. And so there was a lot of Ironman conversation in, pre-surgery, whole discussion the whole time, because somebody told me at the beginning, they're like, you'll most likely never run again. And then right before I go into surgery, the surgeon said, you're for sure going to be able to make it. You're just probably going to be slower than you wanted to be. And so those were the conversations that were happening during this, because that was the other big goal. Now, when I got out of surgery and I started recovering, I still didn't quite know. I was like, I know I need some amount of time. ultimately, I just couldn't swim. That was my deal. Like, I knew I could bike 112 miles. I knew I could run a marathon. But the swimming, I was like very, very scared of. But so I was worried, though. It's like, how much time was I going to have to try to figure it all out? And so I didn't pull the trigger on it immediately until I really knew, wow, okay, cool. I've got like 6 months to train, 5 months to train. But what I'd done was someone showed me the Daytona 100 Ultra, and it was at the very end of the year. It was December 12th. And I'm like, okay, I'll get that because like I at least wanted to do an ultra this year. And so we kind of backworked
Right.
from there. Once I realized I was able to train for Ironman, I was like, okay, cool, we'll do that too.
Yeah. Yeah, very impressive. And so one of the things that I've done with my coaching business, my speaking, my book that's coming out next month is try to weave the lessons of Ironman and endurance sport into business
Yeah.
and be able to help people from a mental toughness. Like we know we can talk mental toughness, right? Because you've
Yeah.
been on the backside. That doesn't give us a license. It's people that anybody's doing something tougher than us, right? But
Mm-hmm.
you've been on the backside of a marathon and had that choice when there's nobody around, right? I could probably walk.
Yeah.
I ain't walking.
Yeah.
I ain't walking. You know why? Because I'm gonna know I walk.
Yeah.
And we're not doing that. There's a big hill coming back into town in Lake Placid, right? Everybody walks. I'm not walking. I'm not walking that hill. There's
Yeah.
2,000, 10,000 people lying in the. There's not one of these people that are going to see me walk. So that mentality, I know you have it.
Yeah.
You've got that straight up savage when it comes to racing. How do you apply some of those things to business? And you've obviously been successful and trying to help other people, but talk to me a little bit about that, how you translate some of those endurance lessons to the business world.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm always big about the doing hard things. And that was kind of like I fell away from it. We had the whole like stay uncomfortable clothing line that we're going to revamp that and make that come back around. But it's always really been a really meaningful statement for me. It's kind of like my personal motto that I live by. And so as far as tying that back in, I just know that like so many people fail in business because when it really gets hard, they stop. They say, oh, I don't have the resources. I don't have the things, the people, whatever it is. It all boils down to resources. And ultimately, you can push through almost anything. And I think that like it's really hard to experience that in business until you just experience it. And you can throw yourself right out in the front of it in any kind of endurance or any kind of racing. Like you can just go. If you've never ran a mile, a 5K is hard, right? Like there's everybody's version of hard. If you've never ran 50 miles, then that's hard, but you've ran 30, right? So no matter what, I love that it's like this never-ending buildable concept to where it's like, okay, cool, this mark was doable and I was able to achieve it. It was maybe easy to me at that level. So I can still go one step further. And I tied this into one of the podcasts where I was talking earlier this year on mine. And I said, who are you when everything in you wants to quit, right?
Yeah.
And so that kind of thought process, like I get to expose myself to that all the time. I was running today and my ankle was hurting, and I'm like, I got to like, no, I'm going to keep going anyway, and like I've seen that so much. The ultra was the best version of that. Like I've also really been interested in the long distance. That kind of derailed me a little bit from long distance, but I've been interested in the conversation of the whole pain cave aspect of like you are just ultimately up against the wall, want to just everything in your body wants to quit. And Ironman really didn't do that to me, but the ultra, like my knees, I had knee issues of IT band pain. I had to stop actually doing my walk jog deal at 65 miles. I had to walk the last 35 miles to make it. It was the most it felt like people drilling into the outside of my knees. It was so painful, but I was like, no, I'm going to finish. And so I just think that those things that we can prove to ourselves that you can do that, well, so then everything in business, it's like, dude, having that hard conversation is no worse than what I went through there, or being financially scared that, oh, I'm going to lose it all. Well, I was able to put up with this. I can handle that pressure too. So I feel like that's how I kind of try to like apply it to the business aspect.
Yeah, that's it's interesting how, and one of the things you touched on is that there's always that next step, right? And people say to me, wow, that's, you've done six of these Ironman races. I'm like, well, my friend Sean over in New Hampshire has done 38 or 40 of them,
Yeah.
so, and he's 2 or 3 years older than me. And I'm looking at him just scratching my head going, but what is this guy made of? So everybody's heart is different, right? And he's doing it for different reasons. You're doing it for your reason. And I think that one of the things, the parallels between Ironman, or just I'll just say endurance sport in itself and business, is that really at its core, you're not competing with anybody but yourself. Would you agree?
100%.
Yeah,
And that's one of the coolest things. Yes, I would love to be on some level where I could be competitive in some higher echelon. I think everybody who wouldn't want that, right? But ultimately, you can always go out and get another PR based off of what
sure.
you were able to do before. Just like in
Yeah,
business, you can get a little bit better. I can learn a little bit more. I can read a little bit more. I can perform a little bit better. I could make a few more calls today. And so there's
right.
always that next level. It's not necessarily like, oh, what the other person's doing. And in comparison to that, I did good or bad.
Yeah, comparison's the thief of joy, as they say in the personal development space, right?
100%.
So what's next for you? You've done the Ironman, you got the Ultra under your belt. I know you well enough to know that you're not stopping there. What's up next?
So I got back on the motorcycle a couple weekends ago for the first time on the same track. So kind of crossed that bridge. My biggest hang up with it is I was working on getting my pro license when I actually officially quit racing dirt bikes. And so it was always very hard for me to go to a track and not go all out. And so I was
Right.
even doing that when I had my wreck. That's, as a motocross racer, that the way you get faster is you push it right to the edge of where you're about to lose it, and so you always have to walk that line all the time. Like, you didn't have a good ride if you didn't at least almost kind of go down once. And then just because you're going to
Right.
wreck doesn't mean it's going to be a
Yeah.
catastrophe wreck. But, that came up. I did realize in this last time I went that I'm starting to realize I can go out and have fun and really reel it in. And so as far as
Yeah.
next, I always had this dream of going to Loretta's, and I never made that. That's a big amateur national for motocross. But I think I really can see myself continuing to pour it into any of the endurance stuff. So really right on the docket for me is I've got a half marathon that's going to be a friend's first half, and now I'm interested in that, bettering myself, right? I want a PR there, which as things are looking, I'm going to really be able to strike a good one. And then I've got on kind of the plan, I've got a full marathon for later in the year. And then another one that I want to get a really strong PR at. And then I'm still kind of looking in the middle. In the middle, I wanted to do Leadville 100, but this other ultra kind of made me think a little bit about it. I know that I really enjoy Ironman, so I'm kind of still like a little bit of planning on what those these events that I get PRs in that I'm already talking about, like, they're not still like the main thing, I'm just trying to increase speed. So I know that one of the goals was I wanted to get in the 10s on a full Ironman this year somewhere, and then maybe do a half Ironman too, because I think half Ironman would really be my sweet spot, because a half marathon is I perform so much better in a half marathon than I do in a marathon. But yeah, I'm just trying to sprinkle in some things. Eventually, I want to do Leadville. I just don't know, after the way my knees were, I don't know. I want to make sure I'm prepared for that. But that's kind of what's on the docket for now. So, and it's even came back to me that if I don't schedule anything else right off the bat, I might just go straight back to California, do the exact same race. Maybe this year and the following year, because I want to do the goal that I initially set out as soon as I finished, like days after finishing. I was like, I want to do another one. I want to get in the 10s, and then I want to do at least one more and be in somewhere in the 9s. And then I would be satisfied with Iron.
Yeah. That's awesome. It's great to hear. And what I see with you just from afar is you're in that hockey stick phase where you're in the early part of that Ironman career where you're going to have some really nice gains and some really nice drops in time. Like, I wouldn't bet against you for a second in getting in the 10s and then really dialing it down and getting in the 9s. But people are going faster and faster and faster all the time. I've had a guy say to me one time, he says, "You're doing well, Bob." He said, "You can get faster till about age 50, and then it's hard to hold on to. Then paces start nosing down a little bit." And he was right. He was right. And also, it takes a toll on your body. It does. And I will say this: Ironman can punch a big hole in your life, whether it's business or personal, with family or all that. Something gets put on the shelf. I always tried to avoid that as much as possible by getting up as early as I could, getting the workouts done. And my motto was kind of never let them see you sweat.
Yep.
Hey, you doing your workout today, Dad? It's already done. What do you want to do? Right? Wasn't perfect at it. But it also gave me a way to show my daughter how to win, how to lose, and how to do both gracefully, and how to compete. And there was so many lessons there for, and I talk about in my book, one of the ones where I had to pull out of Lake Placid '08 because I was just sick. I woke up and it was just the flu or food poisoning or something. I'm in the water with 102 temp. Well, what am I
What am I
actually
doing?
doing right now? Nothing in my stomach. Great way to start an Ironman. And
Yeah.
it was back when they did they fired a cannon and all 2,600 people started at the same time on the wire, and it was a straight up street fight to
Yeah.
get to what they call the cable in Lake Placid. It was fun. I really enjoyed it, and I did it for about 15 years, and it was super hard. And I don't know, I can't answer the question for you right now whether I've let go of it. I'll do another one because it's there, and the medals are hanging on the wall, and they're there, and I'm like, man, I really liked who I was when
Yeah.
I was doing it a lot. It's like you've probably done 75 hard. Like
Hmm.
when you're doing 75 hard, you're getting all your shit done all the time. You're like right on top of the world. Boom, boom,
Yep.
boom, boom, boom. When you're not doing it, you're like, I don't know how the hell I would fit all that stuff in.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
And so I try to, again, apply that kind of stuff to business and be able to look back and see the stuff hanging on the wall like you and go, all right, I made it through that. To your point, this tough conversation is going to be a piece of cake.
Yes.
Yeah, I know the checking account is here, but let's do this, 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 and this, and this. And it's not 10 hours of just brutal pain on my body, right?
Yeah. For sure. For
So,
sure. Yeah.
and
You really, being able to test like what you can really endure, I think
yeah,
is cool. Because and I've had that test multiple times just from injury, right? This was like the second major motorcycle wreck over, my lifespan where I was
yeah,
hospitalized and had a long recovery. I had one other time where I was in the hospital with a fluke virus that almost killed me when I was 28. And, I've just had crazy stuff happen. So I wouldn't wish that upon anybody, but that gave me some crazy perspective of life. And
yeah.
you could not have to go through that, and then you could also get perspective through things like this or other hard
Yeah.
challenges.
Yeah. Well, it's been interesting to chat because I've watched you from afar and said, this guy's doing some of the same stuff I'm doing, or I'm doing some of the same stuff he's doing. One of the things we've both done is try to help others. And so talk to me for a minute about how you're using your business and doing some coaching and consulting and speaking and those kinds of things. How are you, using your business as leverage to help others?
So, just with what we've been able to grow and scale with the Lawn and Landscape Company, we have a location in Illinois, we have one here in Florida, and just really using that model and what we've learned and what we've been through. In the very beginning, I just wanted to share what I learned with people. And so that started out as a YouTube channel originally in 2014, really like right after I started the business. And so that just kept going and kept going and kept going. And that's still the same thing today. Like people will leave comments all the time and like I'm pretty bad at answering them just because there's so many. And so that was the idea of put together things, and that's like the logo right back here, the GrowCom logo of the coaching group. Because it was a way to like, okay, if you want to ask questions, get together, we do weekly calls. And so we take all that information we had and what we use in our business, and then we kind of funneled that in there and then made it where people could have more one-on-one, more interaction weekly, and try to use those things to grow their business and move it forward. Because really just, and I still seek that today, I just want to be able to like skip some of the learning if I can, skip some of the challenge if I can, just because somebody
Yeah.
else already has that info. And, if I could give you the reasons why we did this with our handbook and our structure, and hey, these are some documentation things that will really make sure you don't have the same losses I have with employees or problems in your company. And here's some of the procedures and ways to price and ways to know financially, hey, we're doing good, we're doing bad, this is the direction we're heading. All that stuff, the faster you can learn it, you can just kind of expedite and leapfrog having to just figure it out. And although I did read and I had a bunch of people help me, there's always more info you could get. So we just try to really hand over everything we've got. Like that's in the group. We've pretty much uploaded every document, every Excel sheet, every little thing that I've ever done or continue to do, and then keep updating those so people can use that stuff and grow their companies.
Love it. What's that saying? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Is that what it is?
Yep.
Something like that. Yeah, that's what when you were just talking that's what that reminds me of. And it's interesting. And how is it having a couple of locations in different states like that? That's got to be challenging.
It is challenging. I do have a full plate all the time. I wouldn't want it any other way. I also, like, even with that being said, like, I gotta say, I feel like I do pretty good at like keeping business and family life still pretty structured because I don't work crazy hours. Like I get off at 4 and I go home, and I don't, like, same as you, I don't train at night. I already
Yeah.
trained first thing in the morning and I did
Right.
like a lunch workout. So
Sneak it in.
nobody sees that unless I do like a real long thing on the weekend. But to better answer that question, it's just there's a lot of moving pieces and you got to have people you can trust. And the people thing, like, there's always problems that are in flux and things that need to be handled. Luckily, we're able to, with the tools that we have today, just like us being together here, I'm on in our team meetings. Right now, they're pretty minimal because we're in Illinois, we're all but shut down with, maybe 4 people still working on stuff and doing small stuff, and then the whole office. So our little morning meetings aren't as big of a deal, but we still have our our management meetings twice a week. We have our morning meetings that I would always Zoom into, whether it's, 4 crew members or 20 crew members. And then, so I'm able to stay connected. But yes, there is a lot. We also have we don't just have the landscape company, we now have a SCAG dealership as well that's all kind of bundled up in there with Echo, and the whole nine. So there's a bunch of little crazy moving things, but I think it's kind of like Ironman or any endurance sport. I like the new challenges. There's never, if you were to look back across the years, you could almost know if I didn't do something wild in a year's span, usually within 2 years, we started something new or brought in something new that, like, right when it started to get easier to manage, we just kind of kept adding back to it. So yeah, a lot of moving parts, a lot of documentation required, a lot of logistics, but we've been blessed to have good people. I just feel like I've got super, super lucky there with the people that manage things. And it's made it where I go back to Illinois, but I don't know, if I spent 20 days there over the course of a year, that's probably like the maximum I actually go back. So we do pretty good at a distance.
Yeah, it's cool. And I've heard it said it's hard to be original in the personal development world, right? And so I know I heard this somewhere, I didn't come up with it, but that your goals as the leader need to be so grand that all the people that you're leading, their goals need to fit kind of under that umbrella, and they need to still be able to grow. So the fact that you're out knocking down an Ironman or doing an ultra or maybe starting a new location in a different area or helping people or coaching or speaking or consulting and all that stuff, people look at you and go, all right, I'm going to hitch my wagon to this dude because he's going somewhere.
Yeah.
Do you get that feeling?
Yeah, I do. And that's what I try to I try to cast a big enough vision that everybody's vision falls inside or can fit inside of that, really, where there's room for everyone. And like one of my big things, like pretty much everybody knows, if you're even if you're not that close to me, like almost say majority, it's on every computer screen there is. Everybody knows I want a private jet. Like it's just something I want. Like I want to have a monstrous company. I want a private jet. Like it's just like the random stuff that I want, not to show anybody, but just to be able to have flexibility or to have locations all over the U.S. or whatever the case may be. And so I definitely get that. And that's probably one of the biggest struggles that I also fight with is, sometimes it feels like there's seasons where you're really slamming and you're able to really show that. And sometimes, like last year, like I was able to show that in Ironman, but I feel like, 2024 wasn't the most exciting business year in the world. So still keeping that picture alive for people, you always are fighting for buy-in, right? And you're always fighting for that reason for people to say, yeah, hitch on to your ride and say that this is the person that I want to join. And so, yeah, I think that's one of those reasons why I always look at the things, like if I can find things that other people just won't do, I know that can draw people like moth to a flame type of thing. And so I always look for, like, I love the situation. Like I remember it, and I've told a bunch of people about this. This is way before Ironman. This is getting into running. I was running in Illinois while I was back for something. And it was like borderline freezing cold, and it was raining. And I'm like, I'm running lap circles in Sherman. It's like a mile concrete loop. And I'm like almost smiling because I'm like, I know that everybody sees me, thinks I'm fucking nuts. And that is one of the reasons that I like doing it, and just so I want to set the example of, like, I'll do whatever it takes, no matter what the situation it is, and kind of to wind back from some of like what we talked about leading and trying to be someone worth following. Last year, one of the biggest things was I was like, I have to do this Ironman and this ultra if I can even even potentially do it, because I will get to tell, at least, it matters to my daughter too, but my two boys, one's 7 and one's 9, they got to see this happen. They got to see me get injured. They were very upset. I mean, I get it. Everybody was upset. But I got to do a marathon. I got to have this major injury that you could go multiple ways, right? There are people that get hurt and they never get that out of their head. And they're different long term. Or you could say, fuck it, I don't care, and I'm doing this stuff anyway. And so, like, a lot of 2024, I looked at it like I wanted to show my kids what was possible. Because so much of our time, I think that we look at things and we're like, oh, that's just not even possible to do. It's like, well, you don't even know until you try. And I thought it was a great opportunity to show my kids, and that's what's most important to me, show my kids what you can do if you really, really push and try to do, even in a horrible situation where you could just fold and say, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to be, this bad thing happened to me, and this is why I never did any of those things, because it could just as easily be your excuse as it could be your reason why. And I know that and some of this was just because I'd had all the other bad issue, health, accident, crazy, random stuff that's popped up in my life. Like the first time I got hurt, it took me years or a long time, probably months, to get any kind of perspective or realization that life's short, whatever I got out of that. The second time after the weird virus thing, like it was closer, it didn't take me like a year to get like some perspective out of it. This time I was literally in the hospital, and I did have a friend who, he just knows me well. We don't talk all the time, but we're still really, really close. He's one of those friends that you can call, and when you talk, it's like you haven't missed a beat, even if it's been 6 months. And he's like, dude, I was on the phone with you when you were in the hospital, and I already knew you were more fired up than you've ever been to do shit. He's like, you were on a different level, and you just came out of surgery. And that's really what it did to me this time, so.
Yeah. The bear.
Yeah. So, and it was, that was all about the kids. And then ultimately, I want these other things this and business and everything to, like you said, try to have that big vision where other people could see themselves fitting inside of that.
Man, this has been fun. Good to get a chance to talk to you. As we wrap up, I didn't prep you for this question because we had some technology stuff on the front end of this thing, and we're bootstrapping it together with a couple of phones, but we're getting it done. But the book that I have coming out is called Finding Your Edge. And one of my principles, I guess, and what I try to breathe into people is helping them find their edge. Their edge being, to your point, how you show up when the shit hits the fan, where you go when the chips are down, and what you feel you bring to the table, maybe that others don't. So I'm going to put you on the spot here and ask you, what is your edge?
So I think that my edge is, and what I love is I learned this back from even racing. Like all of this stuff has just pounded in I don't care, I will not quit, I will handle the situation. I've seen this like with dealing with crazy hurricane, worldwide, weird, crazy stuff that's happened here. I just know when stuff is really crazy or really hard, that's actually like what I enjoy for some reason. And so I think that my edge would be just a resilience and a willingness to not pay attention to the noise and just continue moving towards whatever the progress needs to be.
That's awesome. The second question I usually ask people on going out the door is, I don't have a million viewers, but I'll ask you this. What do you want people to know? You've been around the block, mid-30s, done some things, been successful in business. There'll be some people that are watching this that are young at business or new, maybe even new to triathlon, just trying to figure out life. What do you want people to know?
Hey, I think all these things, whether it's your business, whether it's a relationship, whether it's triathlon or any kind of event or any racing or whatever the case may be, I think that all these goals that could be set in life are awesome, and people really get excited about those goals. But the thing that's been the most moving and noticeable for me that I've really been trying to proactively make sure I'm doing is the goal, once you achieve it, is like it's a split second and it's gone. And so through all this, I've also learned that it's like, man, what I really love is that there's a target. So I have all these little stops along the way. That's the journey, right? Like it makes
Yeah.
it training exciting because there's this thing in the future. It's not even so much about the thing in the future. It makes like, being a dad, like because of this thing in the future. So really just it is a long ride. I mean, it could get cut short too. You need to realize that. So that it's a long ride and it could get cut short. So that's why you should go 100% all in. But also, it's all of those pieces that like you would get the opportunity to enjoy that, and that is the journey. It's not about that destination.
Love it. Jacob Godar, guys, the Summit Podcast. Man, it's just, I knew it was going to be cool chatting with you. I could go, we got a hard stop here in a couple of minutes. I could go another hour. We could talk racing, we could talk business. I suspect that we will again. And I appreciate you being willing to take the time to jump on here. And I know that this is the beginning of a long friendship. And I know I can learn a lot from you. So let this be the last time we talk. And I just think you're a cool cat. You got that straight savage junkyard dog feel that I like to be around, but also I'm guessing a very loyal friend and a great dad and husband and all that jazz. So, Jacob, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, man, and likewise. This was really, really fun. I'm glad we got to do this, and yeah, we need to set up more and keep connecting. I appreciate you.
All right. Thanks a
All
lot.
right.
Guys, it's been the Summit Podcast. I appreciate you. It's been Jacob Godar. We're out. Thanks, guys. Take care.
See ya.